And we are live. We are live on YouTube.
The Tubester.
We're live on the tube. We start waiting for people to join.
Okay. I'm trying to see if I have any music on here.
I really want to see how my stream is coming out. If there's a, if it's good quality or not.
Okay.
Can anyone let me know how's the stream? Is it good quality? Is it low quality? Is it moving? Is it all over the place? How's the audio? Right. Welcome. Welcome. Let me see here. Some names. Cyanide 2. Right here, press. Chris Milky. I'm sorry. John Eagle. Hey, Don Andre. How's it going, man? Long
Don
time.
Andre, what's up, brother? I
I
just
think
watched one of
we're
his videos here yesterday.
good content. Good content there.
Yeah, really enjoy him.
So I'm not in my office today. This is my office. It has been my office for the past 72 hours. So sorry for you hear any loud background later.
Oh,
So welcome, Fred.
hey, good to see you.
Good
Glad to
to
be
see
back
you.
again.
Nice, nice. So what are we talking about today?
Well, you and I were talking about ID, and the situations people run into when they have to use ID, and when they should, when they shouldn't. Because as we know, most people, anytime you have any kind of an encounter with the police department, they're always asking you for ID, and it's gotten so rampant now that it's not just the police officers or people that work as peace officers around the country. Everybody thinks they can ask for ID. I mean, I went and rented something the other day, and he wanted my ID, and I says, "Well, okay, I'm happy to provide that if you show me the policy." And he says, "Well, it's just a verbal policy." I said, "Well, not with me, it's not. So I'm not going to participate." I said, "I'm just renting something. I'm giving you cash and securing it with my credit card." I said, "That should be enough."
Right,
And anyway, he got his manager over there and we talked for a couple of minutes. The manager said, "Rent the equipment to him." So
right,
that was that. And we, as we know, I mean, it's going everywhere. Everybody wants your ID. And we got to find out, I'm a big thing about definitions. Everything in the law has a definition. Everything, every word that is used in a legal context has a legal definition and therefore a legal application. It has a
right,
perfect fit in the law. So when we start talking about ID, that it's no different there. What is identification? So what I'm going to do now, remember this: these two things that we're going to preface all our conversations on is number one is the two most important words that affect everything about your life are status, which means who you are, and jurisdiction in relationship to the law, the words of law. And as we
right,
know, the jurisdictions are variant; they're variable. You can have one jurisdiction in your home. You can have another jurisdiction when you're out uh, in a schoolyard or in a store. It's the jurisdiction actually changes based on your location. And we've talked about that. You kind of there you are. You tipped over, man. Don't do that to me. You're making me think you're on the X space shuttle. So I was talking to somebody else the other day, and they said, "Well, what's your favorite book, Fred?" And I said, "My favorite book is a book called The Ultimate Secret to Getting Absolutely Everything You want. The Ultimate Secret to Getting Absolutely Everything You Want." That really is one of my favorite books. It's a very thin book, It's a great read. I've met the author, and it's a phenomenal book if you want to learn how to goal set, plan, and how to accomplish things. It's a great book. But the person I was talking to me said, no, it's not your favorite book. Your favorite book is Black's Law 5th edition. And I said, you're absolutely right. That is my favorite book. That is the book I've probably spent more time in than any other book I've ever encountered outside of the Bible. So
yeah, I believe we have spent countless hours going over state statutes uh,
and the constitutional amendments and
codes
everything,
and statutes. Yeah,
and using Black's Law 5th.
yeah.
Even though there's more current ones, I like Black's Law 5th. Just kind of a better standby for me. It hasn't been liberalized and polluted and tainted, so I like that one. So when you start talking about identification, what is it and so on like that, I'm gonna be stepping off here a little bit. I'm gonna be switching to a different camera, and let's see here. I think this is it. Okay. Okay. All right. Now, how does that look? Is that facing left, right?
No, that's facing.
It looks.
It's not mirrored. That's right.
It looks like it's supposed to be, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So the first thing we're going to look at, what is identity? So that's the first word we're going to talk about is identity. Identity is basically who you are, and that is, as a person. Are you a person? Are you a dog? Are you a fence post? Are you LGBTQSI, sometimes Y, and around the front as we wipe from the front to the back? That insanity. Our identity is basically who we are. That is what is identity, who we are. And that involves our characteristics, our self as a person, our body, our biology, so on like that. That's who we are. Now, what is identifying information? Because this is where you start involving other people, or where we use this, well, it's always involving other people, is that what is identifying information? Identifying information that are things that other people can use to help establish you as a specific entity or person. And that is your name, your address is a common thing used, your parents' name. When we get into more other things, when you start getting involved with forms of information or form of identification, then things change a little bit. So your identity is who you are, and identifying information is things that are associated with you that help separate you from somebody else that might have the similar name. Now it starts to get a little crazy, because now we start using what is a form of identification. Now, it gets very interesting when we start talking about a form of identification, because that involves basically permission and authority to be in a certain place at a certain time. It's all permission, but any type of issued card or placard that contains specific information relevant to the subject, person, car, or whatever. Like, you can get a form of identification for your car. That's a license plate. There's also your registration to help prove that up. So without spending a whole lot of time on that, that's all what a form of identification is, and that's very important, because when you talk about a form of identification, that involves what's called having permission to be in a certain place at a certain time. So, for example, what is a driver's license? It is an issued form of identification to a specific person. They have your name, your address, your parents, or whatever else, not your parents' name, but your name, address, and other identifying information on that form of identification to specifically identify you in comparison to anybody else out there who is going to be classified as a driver. So that form of identification, called a driver's license, is going to be issued specifically to one person. Now, the person that has that is the only one that can use it and carry it. And what does it do? Now, in reality, let's think about this for a second, because I'm not going to talk about the law too much yet. But if you are driving your car and you do not have your driver's license on you and you get pulled over, should you have had your driver's license on you? Yeah, probably.
That
Is it
that
a
va- that varies from state to state.
right? Because here's the whole point is when we talk about having a form of identity, what you're doing is you're actually using something that's classified as a motor vehicle on the public roads. And you had agreed when you got that driver's license that when you were in operation of that particular vehicle or any vehicle, that you would carry that with you in the event that you would be stopped, that you could be properly identified. Now, that's the only time you need it. Now, I've seen some states don't require it. I agree. And there's also places where, how many times have you driven to the store that's just down the street and you didn't have your ID on you and you drove home without it?
Yeah.
Okay. Did you actually commit a crime? I'm not going to touch that because I'm going to say it depends on where you are.
Yeah.
But the necessity of having it on your person is, and this may freak out some police if they're listening, is, oh God, you should have it on you at all times. You should have your ID. No, not true. Because let me tell you about identification when you're not driving, when you're out in public or doing certain things where a specific form of identification is not required. Now, remember, form of identification is something specific, and that involves a time, a place, a person, and or manner. It involves specific things, and it means that you have a permission, a governmental permission normally to be able to do something. Or if you work for an employer, you have some kind of private authorization to be in a certain place at a certain time.
Right.
Okay. But when we talk about ID, and this is like social security numbers, you know, a lot of people get freaked out about this. They say, oh, and we actually well, we didn't actually complete a lawsuit, but we said we were going to sue someone who tried to get one of our babies a social security number when they were born. And I said, what the hell are they going to do with that? No, we're not signing that form, and you're not going to sign up for them. You do not have that permission. Social security number is you know, and as I said before, you are not required to have a social security number to live and work in the United States as an American citizen, as a U.S. citizen. You're not required to have one. It even says this in the Social Security Act, but it may make it easier for you to get a bank account and get credit cards. That's all it says. But when you are born, are you born with an ID card?
No.
Outside of your gender, what are you born with? You are born and that is it. And therefore, when it comes to establishing laws, if you are not born with it, they cannot require you to have it. So if you were not born with a God-granted ID, a form of ID, an ID card, you are not required to have one. So if you are out in public, are you required to have any type of identification on your person?
No.
You're exactly right.
I don't. I don't
Because you
carry.
weren't,
I don't carry one.
thank you. And some people will say, because they're weenies, and they'll say, well, it's a good idea if you do. Well, if you're a weenie, yeah, it probably is. But if you're a smart person and you're a free American citizen, no, don't carry it because it falls under the category, if somebody wants to know who you are, of none of your business. It's none of your business who I am. I have the right to be in public and be in certain places without having any form of identification on my person. Now, the mistake a lot of people have made over the years, and if you watch a lot of these videos online, this is where you see some insanity, is if peace officers approach people, and then we're going to get into this context a little bit more. Number one thing is if they approach you, most people don't have it clear in their mind that there's three types of encounters that you have when you encounter a public servant. One is the consensual encounter. Now, the consensual encounter gives you have all kinds of protections relating to your constitutional guarantees, the First Amendment, the Second Amendment, the Third, the Fourth, the Fifth, and the 14th. have all these constitutional guarantees. And one of them is that everybody talks about, and we went over this last week, is that the First Amendment protects speech. Yeah, it says Congress shall make no law. We went over that last week.
Right.
Abridging the freedom of speech. Now, that abridging is if somebody comes up and talks to you, do you have any obligation to talk to them? I don't care who they are. Are we compelled or required by any law to talk to somebody when we're out in public?
No.
Of course not. Of course, we're not required to talk to anybody. And therefore, if we are out where we're allowed to be, even if we're on our own property, are we required to produce any form of identification to somebody when we're engaged in constitutionally protected conduct or we're in a place we're allowed to be? Absolutely not. Now, we start getting into the blurred and muddied waters when we deal with public servants that are pathological liars. So, number one is that everybody has been brainwashed into believing that they're required to have identification on their person. And we've just established, no, that is not true. We are not required to have identification on our person when we're in a public place. And it's basically none of your business.
Yeah.
So let's say, for example, let's give you a scenario. You're in a public park and you're playing by the swings. And as happens, let's say a police officer comes up to you and asks you a question. He says, "What are you doing?" Okay. Now let's establish some boundaries here. Who is the public servant and who is the entity who is served? Go ahead, Ismail, answer that question. They're the public servant, and we are the ones whom they serve. So the first question becomes, are they rightfully in our presence? Which is the Monsevy case, which means, do we have any obligations to talk with them or encounter them or participate in an encounter in any other way? No, absolutely not.
Right.
So the First Amendment, it says Congress shall make no law abridging the freedom of speech. Now, that freedom of speech allows you to do a couple things. That right gives you the right to speak. Remember, time, place, manner, and content. And it gives you the right to not speak. Now, this is where jurisdiction comes in. If you're in a place where the jurisdiction is you're in a public place, which means you own it, or your private property or something like that, you own it, can you be compelled or required to talk to these people at all?
No, never.
No. You don't have to answer their questions. And I've seen numerous YouTube videos where people say, well, you have to answer my questions. No, I don't. I don't have to answer. I don't have to talk to you. Or they feel like they have to because it's a peace officer. Because as we've identified in Terry versus Ohio a couple weeks ago, that the police over the course of the years have tried to have this attitude of authority over everybody else, and they are very pushy about that.
Yeah.
So
yeah, they always claim you have to answer my questions or you have to cooperate with me. And I mean, I got arrested because I didn't want to cooperate with one investigation.
well, and and how stupid is that? Because that case got dismissed or withdrawn, correct?
Yeah, I got dismissed. Yeah.
Yeah, because you have no obligation to talk to them. And when we start dealing with public servants, things change quite a bit. But the number one thing is because they serve us, we have no obligation to talk to them. We have no obligation to answer their questions, and that's protected by the First Amendment. It's all go ahead.
They always claim, going back to what we were talking about last time, Border Patrol, they claim that we have to answer their question, which is not true. And they mention Martinez versus Puente, and that only gives them the authorization or grants them authorization to be present there. But that's it.
Yeah,
They're
and they won't tell you that. They won't tell you
because
that.
probably because they don't know, and they've been probably trained to tell people that according to that case law, you have to answer questions.
Exactly. And this is one thing we've noticed in a lot of the court cases we've dealt with. I mean, and literally hundreds and hundreds of court cases, all the way up to the federal cases. When these opposing parties use their, when they prepare a response or a motion for summary judgment or a motion to dismiss of some other kind, or they, whatever it is they do, if you review their case law, you pull up the case citations, they note in their documents, when you review it, they didn't read it or they have the wrong one. It doesn't say and support the statement they use in there. And we've actually, they can be sanctioned for that in the courts. So you actually have to know what you're talking about. And anytime they use something, I talked to somebody just yesterday, I'm helping them with a federal lawsuit. And I said, okay, here's what I want you to do. They filed a motion to dismiss. I want you to go through that thing and do a command search, for V period. And then I want you to take a highlighter and highlight everywhere it takes you in your document, in their document. And then I said, okay, and then we're going to go ahead and put those in a list. Now I want you to start searching them online. And I said, since you're a newbie, I want you to download each one of these and then we're going to read them. And there were only about 10. So they downloaded them and we started going through them a couple days ago. And they said, it doesn't say what they said in their document. It doesn't support their claim.
Yeah.
I said, yeah, it supports your claim as the plaintiff. And I said, we're going to make a notice to the court that they are improperly using the case citations, the case authorities.
And they
So,
use they do that all the time. They use case law that benefits the plaintiff or the defendant.
yeah, depending
Some
on which
cases,
side of the fence you're on. When
right?
you're in a
Yeah,
criminal case, they'll use it and it actually supports you as a defendant.
yeah,
And that's basically because, people are lazy people in those positions.
yeah,
But so anyway, so let's get back to where we're going with this is that when you're out in public, let's talk about what your rights are. You're in a place where you have a right to be. We established that. You're doing what you're allowed to do. So everything you're doing is basically constitutionally protected. It doesn't have to be something specific, just like filming in public or anything like that. Whatever it is,
yeah.
talking or singing. Several years ago, I saw people that were in the one of the monuments over in Washington D.C. and they were arrested for dancing.
Wow.
They were just sitting there twirling, and I was just falling on my butt laughing. I said, "This is constitutionally protected speech. They're not doing anything to interfere or impede anybody, and there's nothing you can do to them. You don't have a sign that says no dancing, and that would be a tough legal definition to establish. Remember this; it always goes back to definitions. Anytime somebody uses something, you better be able to define it.
Yeah.
So let's say you're walking there and you're approached by an officer, and he comes up and says, "Hey, what are you doing here?" You can just look at him and not say a word. You
Yeah.
can actually say, "Go ahead."
Or you can let them know that you're married and you don't want to answer personal questions.
That's exactly right, which is what you do a lot. I'm gonna switch the cameras here. Just give me a second here. Okay, so I'm gonna reset this up here. So
You're muted. You're muted, Fred. Oh, I think Fred exited. Let's wait for him to come back. Here we go.
okay, am I
There you
back?
go.
I'll
You're.
get this sorted
I think
out.
you're still muted. You're on mute. Can you hear
I'm
me?
on mute. I can hear you fine.
Yeah, I can't hear you. I can't.
Can you hear me now?
No.
Hello,
You have no
hello.
audio.
Uh, hmm,
Check your settings and change the mic
Bluetooth.
settings, the microphone settings.
Can you hear me now? Hello, hello.
Is it me or
Now?
what?
I can hear you fine. Try that. Can you hear me there?
All right. So they can hear you, but I think it's me.
Hello, hello.
All right.
Well, I may have done something.
So go ahead, continue. I'll look into my phone.
Okay, if you guys can hear me, somebody send Ismael a message. Uh-oh. Is anybody sending you a message that they can hear you or me? Just a second here. And okay, how's that? Can you hear
Yeah.
me now?
There you go.
Okay. I think I figured out what it was.
That was my phone.
Oh, it
Yeah.
was?
If you want to continue, let me get some light here. Be back.
Okay. Can you hear me? What a time to have. So anyway, I'll continue talking and see if there's help. So you encounter an officer. He comes up to you and he says, "What are you doing here?" The big question is, are you obligated to answer his question? Well, if you're in a place where you have a right to be, this is why you need to be aware of your rights and what jurisdiction is. And you're not doing anything that causes alarm or causes a problem or infringes upon the rights of anybody else. Number one, you don't have to answer his question. You have no obligation to answer them. That's the first thing. And that's protected by the First Amendment. You can answer a question or you don't have to answer a question. Now, remember, I probably should have said this first, but our technical difficulties messed me up. Is when they come up to you, you have no obligation to say a word. They are trained to ask questions, and we have been programmed to respond to questions. But I'm going to say, you don't have to answer any questions. There's no law that compels or requires you to answer any of their questions. And you can even ask them, just say, is there a law that requires me to answer any of your questions? And clearly, because of the First Amendment, and then moving to the Fifth Amendment, which means that you do not have to answer any questions or say or do anything that's going to incriminate yourself, you can be silent. And I'm trying to remember who did this a few weeks ago. There was a video I saw that says that some court said that you have to make the announcement that you are invoking your guarantees of the Fifth Amendment to not incriminate yourself. I have never heard that in my life, and that is absolutely the stupidest ruling in the world. And so they arrested him for not talking and not helping them with their investigation. But the question comes back to, is there a law that requires us to assist them with their investigation? The answer is no. So now let's go back a little bit to our scenario. They come up to you and they want to talk to you, and you have the option of not talking to them or talking to them in a limited fashion. Now the next thing that comes up, because this is crack for the police, and it's so rampant, it's become a joke that cops want ID. They always want ID. the number one thing is that they want to run you for warrants. And as we said before, remember, cops are accusers. Unfortunately, they don't do much to help anybody. They are just accusers. And when they encounter you, they're looking for a reason to accuse you of something. And they will go out of their way to come up with anything to accuse you because they have to justify their economic existence. I know for a fact over in LA that they had a lawsuit over there that was settled, I don't know, probably 7, 8 years ago, may have been a little longer, that the police were required to issue so many traffic citations and make so many arrests per month. Otherwise, they would not be able to be promoted, and they would not get raises. They would be held back from certain other things. And no matter what you'll hear out there say, oh, no, we don't do that. I'm going to promise you as a fact, it happens all the time. Why? Because that's how they get extra money. They issue citations. So when they're coming up and talking to you, figure that they're probably going to try and find something to accuse you of, some crime or something. And that's why you don't want to talk to them. You don't want to talk to the accuser. And besides, you don't know who they are. They always say this, well, I don't know who you are. Well, dude, I don't know who you are. And then they point to their chest, and then they point to their badge and say, that's who I am. And it's like, oh, okay, I'll do that here. I have a freckle over here, and I have a mole over here, so that's who I am. Yeah, they don't like it when you do that to them. The reality is you don't have to talk to them, and I would encourage you not to talk to them or have a very limited conversation with them. Can you hear me, Ismail?
Yeah, I can.
Okay. So that's the first thing. And now, what guarantees do you have right there? The First Amendment guarantees you the right, since Congress can make no law abridging the freedom of speech, you have the freedom to shut up. And you have the Fourth Amendment, the first and the fourth, that give you the right to walk away. The First Amendment gives you freedom of motion and movement. And if somebody tries to interfere with that, that becomes a restriction on your motion and your movement. And that's a Fourth Amendment violation because you're being seized in some fashion. Right. So you don't talk to them. I wouldn't spend my time don't act like they're your friends. And I know if Don Andre is still out there, he's said that and presented that many times on his videos. Phenomenal job. They are not your friend. And don't think they are. Okay, they're earning a paycheck, and the more trouble they can create for you, the more job security they have. I really believe we probably have about, I don't know, divide what we have by 6, and that's how many peace officers we should have. And why do I say that? If our court systems are doing their jobs, then the right people will be put in jail and prison and be properly reprimanded. And the rest of the people will be able to live out in the streets and in public and in their homes without fear of anything happening to them criminally, as a general rule. So you don't have to talk to them. I wouldn't talk to them. But then comes the thing. They start asking you questions. So now you know you don't have to answer any of their questions. So the next thing after them asking the questions is get away from them. And if they ask for ID, which they're always going to ask, they say, well, you look suspicious. Looking suspicious in and of itself is insufficient to justify a detention. Yeah, it's insufficient.
They tend to confuse suspicious with reasonable suspicion, and they say, well, I have reasonable suspicion because you did this.
Yeah. Well, guess what? At that point, you should shut up. You can ask them one question. You say, are you conducting an investigation? Now, and let me tell you some things I learned when I was when I had encounters with the police, which I still have some from time to time. We have these things right here. So I'm gonna switch back around here to the back-facing camera. Can you guys still hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. So when we have an encounter and they start asking questions, I'm going to encourage you to do the same thing. The first thing you do remember this, is I want to know if they're in their official capacity. So we say, what kind of encounter is this? Is this consensual? If it's consensual, you don't necessarily have to walk away, but sometimes it's safer to do that.
Right.
But you don't answer any questions. Number two here, B, is an investigatory stop, which means that in order for them to have an investigatory stop, they have to have a reasonable, articulable suspicion of some crime or criminal activity. And you can ask them to say, what kind of encounter is this? I think this is fun. I think people should pull this out, have it on their person.
Yeah.
Just say, hey, can I ask a few questions before we continue this? What kind of encounter is this? Is it consensual? Okay, well, I don't want to talk to you. Is this an investigatory stop? Then I want to know what reasonable, articulable suspicion of a crime I'm suspected of committing, because it has to be tied to you. And then the final one here is arrest. Did you witness me committing a crime, or is there a warrant I can look at that says that you can arrest me? Because they have to have probable cause or a warrant before they can take you into custody.
Yeah.
And then you can ask them.
There's only certain instances that they can conduct or effectuate a warrantless arrest. I believe that those are felonies, right? Or
Yes.
misdemeanor in their committed in their presence.
Right. Felonies, you can have, enough a probable cause statement from another witness or something like that, and you can arrest them based on that. And you have to still get the warrant. And I don't want to get too much in that tonight, but sometimes they have to get a warrant after they've arrested you.
Yeah, I think we can
demonstrate there's probable cause.
talk about that next time. Because remember we were reading the rules of civil procedure, and it says that anyone can effectuate an arrest
when somebody commits a crime, even a misdemeanor, in their presence.
Right.
Yeah,
Well,
and I agree with that.
At least in Texas. I don't know about other states.
No, it's actually anywhere.
Yeah.
Anywhere and everywhere. If somebody commits a misdemeanor in your presence, because remember this, is the laws are based on what we, the people, establish through the common law. And
Right.
through the statutes, we give our public officials authority to handle certain things for us. But they get the power to arrest from the people. They don't have it through statute other than what we have. We have all the rights, all the power, and we give them limited delegated authority to do certain things for us in whatever job title that they might have. So that's how you kind of handle this encounter here. Now, those are some of the questions, but when it comes down to ID, and I'm going to change the camera back here. When it comes to getting ID from you, remember what we said about ID. When you're out in public, just living your life and doing whatever you're doing, are you required to have ID? And the answer is no. So if you're not required to have it and you're not born with it, you don't have to show anything. And they love to, if you don't have your ID, they like to pull that little book out there with that little pencil. Okay, so, and they won't look at you eye to eye because they're chicken shits. They won't look at you eye to eye. They're gonna look down at their paper and say, "Okay, what's your name? What's your name? What's your name? Okay, and then they'll go, oh, okay, I'll put it back."
Yeah,
and
because
just
they expect you to answer, because most people do.
Because they're afraid. Now, this is something that we taught people through our seminars, our freedom law seminars. We told people, said, number one, stop being afraid. Everybody works for you, even the courts. The courts, the everybody that's involved with the court system, including the judges elected and appointed, they work for the people. And they don't want to believe that, but they have to be reminded.
Yeah.
So when it gets to the point where they ask you about identification, you have to be smart enough to go, oh, am I required to have identification? The answer is no. In most situations, you're not. Unless it's time, place, and circumstances. If you're on a school property, you're probably going to have some type of ID if it's requested of you, if they have, whatever the school policies are. If you're a student, I know you're going to need a student ID. If you're a parent coming to visit, you have to identify yourself that you are the parent of some specific child, and I imagine they can ask you to provide some identity. that way, a specific form of identification. Now, because I'm leading up to something here regarding this. Now, you don't have to provide it and you don't have to have it. And even if you don't, if you get pulled over, you don't have it, fine. You did something to attract attention to you, or, there are many scenarios where the cops are just total assholes and they just want to pull you over because, again, they're trying to justify their paycheck. They're trying to keep their job. But go ahead and take the ticket. Go to court, produce it. You might pay like a $50 fine or something like that, whatever. And I would say one of two things. Number one is be careful when you're driving out there. Drive defensively. Number two is if you do that, you draw less attention to yourself. And if you get pulled over, then go ahead and produce your identification. If they have, if they request it, they have a valid cause for your stop.
Right.
But when they stop you in that kind of a situation, there's only several things that happen. One, you produce your identification. And I use the word produce. Remember, I like Black's Law Dictionary, 5th edition. Present or produce is the same thing. It does not mean give or hand over. They're two distinctly different things. So you go ahead and say, okay, I'll present it to you, and I'm going to present my registration and my proof of insurance. They've been presented to you. Go do what you're going to do. Now, if they ask you a question, and we went through this before, but it's good because we probably have a few new people on here. They start to question you in a traffic situation. Where are you going to? Where are you coming from? Have you been drinking? Your eyes look a little bloodshot. Hey, my eyes did a little bloodshot after I spent hours on the computer, or I've been outside or something like that. It's not an uncommon phenomenon. It's
Right.
usual. They say stupid shit because like I said, they're an accuser. They're trying to get an arrest. They're trying to do something to hit their quotas. And if they say, oh, we don't have quotas, I'm going to say, you're a liar. And you need to just shut up about it because we all know you do. It's been established in the courts that they have quotas. They're not supposed to, but they do. And so you present the ID to them and take care of all the stuff. You presented everything to them. You didn't give it to them. You presented it to them. And they're asking you questions. Where are you coming from? Where are you going? What's going in here? What's this? What's that? I think I smell marijuana. No, I just had a really bad hot dog today and I farted. But, suck it all in, man. Breathe it all in. It'll make my car smell better. You have no obligation to answer their questions. You have no obligation to participate in any investigation. I would tell people this, specifically with traffic stops, make them as brief as possible. Shut up.
Yeah.
The number one problem that I see when people are encountered by the police, whether it's legitimately or questionable or without proper authority, the one thing people try to do is talk themselves out of any type of detention.
Yeah, that's never gonna happen.
It's the stupidest thing in the world. You're talking to somebody who's got a low IQ, number one. They've already been instructed by their supervisors they need to have a quota. And what are you're gonna talk to them? Your words should be specific and precise and on topic, relating to things that have to do with your constitutional guarantees. And if you have no obligation to talk to them, don't talk to them.
Yeah,
I've seen things in. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. When I get pulled over, I don't answer questions. I ask questions.
Yeah, you've done a brilliant job the last few years. Very, very proud of you. You've learned a lot. Yeah, you ask them questions.
They're not trained to answer questions.
No, because they're trained to be bullies.
You catch them off guard every time you ask a question when they ask a question.
Or you make a statement like, no, I'm married. I'm not.
Yeah,
I'm not married. But you have to be careful about that because people inadvertently trap themselves by talking because people are stupid. And I tell people, number one thing you want to do is relax, take deep breaths. Just want to take a deep breath and realize what your obligations are. And I don't care what the scenario is.
Yep.
You are not required or compelled to participate in anybody's investigation.
Yep.
Period.
Yeah,
And
not
in
even
order
for murder.
not even for murder, and in order for your testimony to be admitted as evidence, it has to be sworn under oath. So why would you talk to them anyway? I've seen people that they've taken into custody, and I saw a very interesting video the other day. And remember, you need to shut up. This guy was taken into custody improperly. It was car repossession. Oh, and this guy, and this guy's probably in his 40s. He's been in the Coast Guard for 23 years. He bought a truck. Some of you guys may have seen this video. He bought a truck in July this year, and somebody at the car dealership put the wrong VIN number on his paperwork. And so somebody at the dealership, after like 6 weeks, and this guy put $15,000 cash on it. It's a dream truck. You know, wherever it was an ATX, I don't know about him. He's all excited about having his truck, and he's driving down the road, and a cop pulls behind him and pulls him over. And then all of a sudden there's 8 cops pull around him. One cop hits the back of his truck because he's retarded, the cop, you know, and the guy gets out and they've got guns drawn on him. And they say, you know, this is why we're stopping you. Actually, they didn't tell him why he was stopping him. And then they handcuffed him, put him in a car, took him into the police station and put him in a room. And two detectives, right? Everybody think detective means that there's something to do with intelligence there. No, it's like there's no intelligent life on Mars, okay? There's none on the on Mars, there's none on the moon. There's no intelligent life. So get that out of your system. So this guy still had not been told why he was arrested. And they said finally, after they had him there for some time and asked him a bunch of questions, and they like didn't know what to ask him. They said, "So how'd you get the truck?" He says, "Well, I bought it." He says, "My paperwork's, you know, at home. I can get it. I can have my girlfriend bring it over." And then he's like going, "Well, I don't know if we could do that. It's like your situation, Ismael. No, we're not going to listen to your story. We're going to listen to the dealership story. And, you know, somebody says you stole it." And he says, "Man, here's my paperwork here." He says, "Look at my phone. Here's the text messages from the salesman. Said, 'Congratulations, you got your loan approved. We're accepting your down payment. Come get your truck and drive away.'" Anyway, they keep him in there for, I think it's like an hour and a half to 2 hours, maybe more. They've damaged his truck. They've arrested the guy. And this guy's being Joe Nice Guy, which I would not, I'd sit there quietly and just say, "Well, you know, once you people complete your investigation, I'm going to sit here and wait for you to do it. And then when you finally pull your head out of your ass and find out that that's the truck I bought, then, you know, then I'm going to sue you for a wrongful arrest and for damaging my car." So anyway, they finally get it all done, and these guys are so stupid at Broward County, Florida. And these guys were scratching their heads like, "Man, I don't know how this could have happened." "Well, could you get the handcuffs off me? Could you let me go? Can I go get my truck?" "Well, it's been impounded." You know, like, all these unsolvable situations. Anyway, the guy should have just sat there and let them figure it out. Unless it's a situation where you're beyond your liberties are going to be at stake, where you're actually going to be assaulted or seriously injured, which I don't know if that's going to help either, because there's so many crazy ones out there, as we have seen. You have no obligation to talk to them. Let them conduct their investigation. I'll just say, "I'm going to just sit here until you get done. Let me know when you're done.
Yeah.
We're going to take you to the station and we're going to hold you for 3 days." "Okay, all right, that sounds good. Let me call home, let them know which jail am I going to? Okay, can you tell me what the charge is? Okay, before you take me, you better call your city attorney or your district attorney and talk to them about this and tell them that you're probably wrong, and I'm going to sue you in a federal civil rights action, and I'm going to prepare a criminal affidavit for your conduct, and I'm going to pass it off to Madam Attorney General Pam Bondi, so they can come in and investigate your dumb ass." Now, like I said, this is just the regular people. So
Yeah.
you don't help them with all this stuff. Just be quiet. Let them do what they got to do. And they eventually let this guy go, and they had to pay for his truck. I'm waiting for the other stuff on this stuff about what the fallout's going to be. But if he's smart, he should be suing them, and he
Oh
should
yeah.
be naming the car dealership as a defendant, because it looks to me like somebody put the wrong VIN number on his paperwork so they could steal the truck that had the wrong number on it. That's what it looks like to me. It looks like it's theft.
Yeah.
So
It could
anyway,
be. Yeah.
so he would have been better off just sitting there shutting his mouth trying to explain everything to him, because they still couldn't figure it out. Even with him giving them facts, they still couldn't figure it out.
Right.
So what you need to do is realize, at that point, did he need to have any ID on his person? He was in a parking lot, is when they stopped him. He didn't need to have ID on him. He didn't even need to present any ID to him. And even that didn't help him.
Yeah.
So the best thing to do is be quiet and, know what your rights are. And you learn little by little. And it really takes a little time to think about things when you're in a situation. And as time goes by, you're going to realize, well, that doesn't seem right. Like somebody, I'm not going to give you another scenario because that'll drag this on too long, because I think we're getting close to our time. But you don't have to have a specific form of ID, and you don't have to provide your identifying information unless you are under arrest. If you weren't born with an ID, you don't need to have it. So that's number
Right.
one. Number two is they don't need as a matter of fact, it was ruled on in, I think, one of the appellate courts, might have been the Ninth Circuit, that said, and I like the Ninth Circuit, because they're generally, somebody said, some attorney, some hillbilly attorney said, oh, they're pretty liberal over there. And I said, like, not if you read their rulings. I said, they're actually right in line with the Constitution most of the time. And they said that the cops arrested this guy because he did not provide a placard or card to
Plastic
identify
ID.
himself,
A form
and
of ID.
a form of ID. He had no obligation to provide a form of identification. As a matter of fact, in that situation, he was under no obligation to even provide his name and his address and his birth date, which
Yeah.
is sufficient information to provide them. They always want a form of ID because they want to run a number.
And
There's a number associated on there.
Texas is I want to say the easiest statutes regarding identification, because everyone outside Texas even knows it. Like 3802, everyone knows 3802.
Yeah, they
You,
only.
you have to be under arrest in order for you to be compelled to
Provide your
identify.
name. Yeah. And the interesting thing about that, why are you not required to provide that identifying information if you're not under arrest, is because you could incriminate yourself. You may have a bench warrant, and I think bench warrants for failure to appear are pretty stupid. I think that they need to issue you a second summons rather than arresting you for not showing up for a $45 ticket. I think that's absolutely, that is Nazism
Yeah,
on its face.
they wanted my identification one time, that I had a felony warrant, and they're like, "Can I see your ID? Because I believe you have a warrant." I'm like, "No." Am I detained? He's like, "No." Then no.
Yeah, so you don't give them anything, you don't help them out. They're public servants. And remember, you have all these guarantees and protections, but you got to know what they are. As we go further along in our podcasts, we're going to be going into a lot more detail into the Fourth Amendment, which is very relevant, the Fifth Amendment, and then the Sixth Amendment, the Seventh Amendment, the Eighth Amendment. And I think that should be good enough. We'll talk a little bit about the 14th, about the due process guarantees
Yeah.
and fair treatment, which is really fun because there's something that I like to talk about called selective enforcement of a statute or a law. And that's where people, and this, I first found out about this years ago, but I saw it come into practice and I know I'm going down a rabbit hole here. A guy was standing on, listen to this, he was standing where the local train comes by and takes you into San Francisco from an outer, like Walnut Creek or whatever else is out over there. He was eating something on the platform. And there was a
Oh
sign
yeah,
that
yeah, I
said,
remember.
remember that? It said, no
California.
eating on the platform, California, of course. And so the train police arrested him, and the attorney, who I happened to send an email to, I don't know if he got it or not, but they went ahead and asked and said, how many times has this officer or any officer arrested somebody for violating that specific law?
Yeah.
Zero. So it was considered selective enforcement, and he happened to be black as well. You know, he was a professional man, and they said, well, if it's selective enforcement, that's improper. That means it's targeting. That means it can't stand.
Right.
So anyway, so going back to our stuff is that, yeah, don't talk to them, don't answer questions, know the situation. If you're detained, shut up. If you're under arrest, shut up. Don't think you can talk your way out of it.
Yeah.
Just relax. Just relax. Don't get hurt, because these people like to hurt you. And you know, if you're calm, you'll do better off. But remember this, is that you aren't required to carry any specific form of ID. If you're a guest, now there's a big, by the way, there's a difference between guest and passenger in a vehicle. A passenger is somebody who pays
Ace.
for passage.
Yeah.
Okay, look it up in your Black's Law 5th edition. And a guest, and this is, I found case law on this years ago, that somebody who's just traveling with you, traveling, right? They're a guest. And so they have no obligation to do anything. That's why somebody that's traveling with you does not have to produce ID. Do they have to have ID on them? No. So, you know, and I can't believe that we keep revisiting some of these things because these peace officers are improperly trained. So making this nice and simple for everybody, we're going to call it a night. Number one is that you are not required. Your identity is who you are. Number two, you're not required to have any form of identification on you when you're out in public, in your home, or most areas like that, because you weren't born with it, and they cannot make a law to require you to have ID to be out in public.
Yeah.
Cannot. You know why? Because we, the people, won't allow it. We just say no. And the third thing is that you know, you don't have to give them a form of ID if you're forced or required to identify, but make sure you're required to before you do. And
Right.
even if you're under arrest, you don't have to give them a form of ID. You can
And
just give them your name. Go ahead.
even in Texas, it says you only have to present your true name and
Your
identifying
legal name,
information when
address,
you
and birth date.
well, only when you not only arrested but lawfully arrested.
Oh, yeah, exactly. And again, if you are charged with failure to identify, it better be
which
because you were lawfully arrested.
which
Because
I have been arrested.
it's a class C misdemeanor. It's fine only. And because it's a secondary charge, they cannot arrest you for failing to ID, which they did to this guy. They
Yeah.
arrested him for failing to ID without any other charge. Well, you can't. It's a class C misdemeanor. It's a maximum $500 fine in Texas. And but if you're not lawfully arrested, then you aren't required to provide identifying information, not a form of ID. You're pretty much never required to provide a form of ID. Does that help? I wanted to finish on that now. You're not required to provide a form of ID when you're being arrested. You can just provide identifying information if you're lawfully arrested. That's your name, your birth date, and your address. Okay, Ismail, did you go away? Ismail, you cut the feed. Did you cut the feed? Anyway, I'm going to sit here and look silly for a minute. Did you cut the feed, man?
No, no, no. I got a phone call. Phone call was coming in.
Tell them this is important business.
Oh yeah,
Okay, so you
there
guys got
definitely.
it. Number one, you're not required to carry a form of ID on you unless you're doing something that
That you're
you know,
required, like
you're
a commercial
required.
truck driver.
Yeah, and there you're required to answer questions. But
Yeah,
as a civilian, as a person whom these public servants work for, you don't have to do any of that, and you don't have to provide them a form of identification. And in Texas, and other places, is almost so. Some places they only require your birth date and your name.
yeah,
They figure that's sufficient, which I kind of think it is. But that's all you do. But the best thing to do is remember, you don't have to participate in these encounters. If you don't have these, we can make those questions available to you. And remember, that's how you get them. Ask them questions.
ask questions. Yeah,
Bec- because if they're not in their official capacity, oh my God, probably, I don't know how many people saw this. There's a police officer, I believe, or a sheriff's deputy in Florida that was drunk, that attacked these kids and pulled his weapon, his service revolver or pistol, was aiming at these kids and knocking them on the ground. They fired him pretty quickly, only after the video went viral.
yeah,
Only after the video went viral. And if they weren't recording it, I'm telling you, those little kids would have been screwed. They're teenagers.
yeah.
But
Depending is what I understand so far. Depending on the capacity the public official is serving, there's certain requirements for which they are
must
legally
comply.
they must comply with the requirements in order to hold official capacity.
Capacity. And it's not just having their uniform on. Okay. When they're on the clock, that's when they hold official capacity. Outside that, they're just a clown's uniform. I don't like to say it like that because it's
I'll,
kind of insulting, but
I'll tell you all a story next on the next podcast when there was a judge that was not in his official capacity and he learned after that. So I'll tell that story next time.
was I in the wings on that one at all?
Kinda.
Yeah. I think
Also,
you and I had a chat about that. And I says, what? What?
yeah,
Because in order for, yeah, we'll go, you'll tell them that story next week. That'll be fun.
yeah.
So I'll just tell everybody out there, just keep this in mind that we will be here next Thursday, 6:37 p.m. We're going to try and get things dialed in, and we'll talk about some other things next week. But so again, just remember regarding identification, you are not required to carry a form of ID on you, and I would suggest that you don't.
Yeah.
Okay, do not. And the only time you're required to provide identification is if you are lawfully arrested. And I don't know where these people are getting trained, but it's so rampant. They think that if you're suspicious, but remember, suspicion is different than reasonably articulating that suspicion of a crime exists.
Yeah.
Suspicion is like a hunch, or like Quasimodo from that show Has a Hump, The Hunchback of Notre Dame. He had a hump. So just because they have a hump doesn't mean that gives them any authority. But yeah, you got to make sure they're in they're holding official capacity. Because anyway, to
Yeah.
finish up that story, and I got to do this, so don't leave this loose. That cop went home to his house and put on his uniform, put on his gun, came out and said he was a police officer and drew his gun and was aiming it at teenagers.
Yeah.
And he thought, see, because they don't teach them. And so if anybody's listening from the police department or sheriff deputies or anywhere else, why don't you teach the people what official capacity means? And that way their authority is going to be limited the way it's supposed
Yeah.
to be, not
And,
24/7. Anyway, guys,
and now he's liable for personal,
he's
right?
personally liable, right? He can be individually charged. And I will say this at the end of this is that he shouldn't be given special treatment just because he's a peace officer. We hold them to a higher standard. They violate our rights. The punishment should be more extreme. the maximum of what is allowable under law, and it should be swift and immediate and intense. So don't carry your ID if you're in a place where you don't need to be. You got your phone, that's enough. You don't talk to anybody you don't want to talk to. And just be smart. Know what those things are. Know the definitions. Look up definitions, man. I'll tell you what. And if you're doing a Bible study, look up words. The whole verse will have a whole new meaning for you. Anyway, I've talked too much. I've gone over too far. God bless everybody. Do the right thing. Take care of one another, and study the law. It's not that hard. God bless.
Yeah. All right. Thanks everyone for being here again. Eye for an Eye Free Press, Steve Lander, Danny Sanders, Jason, everyone, Vimes and LA Transparency, Oklahoma Outlaw, Jack Off, Alan Storm. Sorry if I missed anyone. Thanks for being here, and we'll be here on next Thursday, God willing. God bless. Bye.
Good night.